Greetings, my glorious Adeptus Custodes. Today I will tell you the truth. And it is, alas, not the truth that is known in every corner of the Imperium, for our dark past is full of bitterness and suffering. Well, Tyranids. With all the information available at the moment, we can say for sure that Tyranids are not from our galaxy. No one, not even the wisest of the Eldar, knows from what dark corner of our universe these monsters came. They have no emotions. They cannot be negotiated with. They only want to satisfy their endless hunger. It is unknown how many galaxies the Great Devourer had time to devour before he invaded ours. And it is unknown how many more are lurking in the dark void of space. In this chapter of my diary, I have compiled for you all the bits of information I know about them. The time has come. These monsters received their name after their first contact with the Imperium on the planet. Tyrannus in the year 741 of the 41st millennium. Despite the fact that this force is relatively new to our galaxy, it is already accurate to say that the Tyranids are the most dire threat not only to humanity, but to all organic life in general. The representatives of the Adeptus Terra are already busy trying to dispel the veil of mystery and understand where these monsters came from and why they came to our galaxy in the first place. Despite the fact that the first contact with the Great Devourer happened only a few hundred years ago, the reasons for this invasion go back a long way. Let's go back 10,000 years, namely to the beginning of the 31st millennium. At this time, the heresy of the Traitor Arch is gaining momentum. After his victory at Istvan V, Horus commissions Conrad Cursa and his legion of Night Lords to protect Horus's flank and supply lines, while he himself prepares for his decisive assault on Terra. The Night Lords were to prevent the Legion of Dark Angels from coming to the aid of the defenders of the throne world. For the sake of this, Conrad Kierce begins a crusade of his own. However, this is just the backstory. The story itself begins with a space trooper named Barabbas d'Antioch. He was a formidable blacksmith of war for another legion of traitors called the Iron Warriors. But unlike his brothers, he refused to support his Primarch and remained loyal to the Emperor. As a result, the fortress for which Barabbas was responsible was forced to hold a long siege by his betrayed brothers. In the end, the fortress fell, and he was able to retreat to continue the war against the traitors. Barabbas gave his life during the defense of Faras, but before he died, he was able to activate the artifact. It is not clear what purpose he had in doing this, whether he did it by accident or on purpose. But as it turned out, Faras was a very powerful psychic beacon. The psychic flare was strong enough to spread throughout the galaxy, and even beyond. And who would have thought that somewhere out there, millions of light years away, in the cold darkness, there would be someone who would catch that signal. Now let's go back to the 41st millennium a few hundred years ago. Imperial scouts, exploring worlds in the eastern parts of the galaxy, discovered something interesting. Or to be more precise, nothing. Absolutely no signs of life, just empty planets. Although according to the Imperium, they should have been teeming with plant and animal life. Now not even bacteria remained on the planets. In the future, new, suddenly empty worlds were discovered, and even though the scouting reports excited the Adeptus, Terra Imperium has not moved a step forward in solving this mystery, because the universe is huge. Who knows what other secrets it may hide? It was only a short time later that the Council of the Inquisition found someone interested in this phenomenon. He was Inquisitor Cryptman. He set off on a long journey to the eastern part of the galaxy to find out the causes of this phenomenon. But before he reached his goal, the Great Devourer had already struck the first blow. The planet Tyran, or its more formal name, Tyran Primus, was not something of value. There were no valuable resources on it, nor did it have any strategic value. It was just an ordinary oceanic world that housed a research outpost of the Adeptus Mechanicus. But the aliens were not interested in any of that. The only thing that mattered to them was that there was life on this planet. The planet was the first on the path of these Xenos, and therefore the first to take the full brunt of the attack. What happened on Tirana could hardly be called a battle. It was extermination. A hive fleet of gigantic size had completely blocked the planet from starlight, causing darkness to fall. There was no serious garrison on Tyranids, just a small fortified scouting station with a couple hundred scouts and members of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The outpost was wiped from the face of the galaxy in a matter of hours, but before it did, it still managed to send a message about the new impending threat. Only a brief message and a mental image of huge monster clouds in the sky reached the Imperium. After the event on Tyrannus, the Great Devourer had gotten its name, the Tyranids. With the new data from Tyrannus, the Imperium began to reinvestigate. Rechecking the Imperial archives revealed that the Tyranids had begun their invasion much earlier, and even if it was not on the same scale as now, it is now known that the Tyranids have been probing our galaxy for a long time. Such monsters as the Catachan Devil from the Catachan system and the Fenrisian Kraken from the home planet of Primarch Lehman Russ are believed to be descendants of an unknown ancient tyrannic hive fleet that once reigned in our galaxy. Moreover, the records of the Inquisition suggest that humanity's contact with the Tyranids was as early as the 35th millennium in the person of the not-so-famous Genocrates. It was only with the coming of the Great Devourer's main forces that the true nature of these parasites that flooded the worlds of the Imperium was revealed. And for many years now, many expeditions have stumbled upon lonely drifting Imperium spaceships with huge holes in their hulls and completely exterminated crews. With each new such ship, the Imperium continued to accumulate information. Records from telepathic matrices and onboard computers, surviving witnesses. Even a living Tyranid organism was found on the ship Hammer. All this helped to learn a lot about these Xenos. The experiments of the Adeptus Mechanicus mage biologists revealed many terrible secrets. At the same time, the Imperium's first combat encounter with the Tyranids took place. The Hive Fleet, which had already been given the name Behemoth, was able to reach from the planet Tyrannus to the homeworld of the Order of Ultramarines, the planet Makraga. What was happening there looked more like a massacre than a battle. Waves of huge Tyranid carcasses were literally flooding the battlefield. The battle for Makrag was an important event in the history of not only the war with the Tyranids, but the Imperium as a whole. 250 years later, thanks to various encounters with these creatures, the Imperium's knowledge of Tyranids has grown considerably, although not without casualties. During all this time, 2 orders of Adeptus Astartes and Mourners were completely destroyed. But their sacrifice was not in vain at all. The Imperial troops gained invaluable experience in fighting these creatures, and also several living organisms of Tyranids were found, which performed the function of transportation of units on the battlefield from where the information was obtained. All Tyranid technology is based on biological engineering. Every, even the most insignificant function and task is performed by specially created living beings. The main task of all hive fleets is to absorb any form of genetic and biological material. They use it for their own development and reproduction. As stated earlier, Tyranids have no emotions, feelings, or any intelligence of their own. Only the strongest of them, such as hive tyrants or swarm lords, have at least some rudiments of their own mind. But we will talk about them later. Who then directs this theme of mad monsters in battle and controls them in general? It is commonly believed that all Tyranids are united by a single supermind, which in my state is nicknamed the hive mind. It deprives the eaters of any individuality and binds the entire race into a single whole. But it is not a single brain that could be compared to something. It is an incredible, in complexity, and size consciousness, collected from the psychic energies of all the innumerable armies of the swarm, be it a hive tyrant, a brood lord, or an ordinary democrat. Everyone, from the smallest to the largest, obeys the will of the swarm. It is this mind that makes every Tyranid a cog in a huge and complex mechanism whose sole purpose is to devour all life. The mental power of the hive mind is so immense that it can leave a so-called shadow in the warp. The presence of the hive's massive fleet distorts the warp by many light years, preventing Imperial communicators from establishing telepathic communication with the Imperial fleet and coordinating actions, thereby confusing them and depriving them of any ability to summon help. Psykers are also affected by the hive mind. It invades the minds of Psykers who are nearby and causes severe malaise and headaches that cannot be relieved. Weak Psykers are particularly affected by the hive mind. It causes severe panic attacks and unbearable terror. A lot of people can't take it and go permanently insane. But some of you may have thought that if the Tyranids have their own mental consciousness, there was no particularly strong Psyker who could not penetrate their minds. Well, there have been numerous attempts to contact the hive mind, but they all end the same way: death and insanity of the Psyker. There are several theories as to why this is so. The first theory says that the mind of the hive is too complex to comprehend, for it is far beyond human comprehension. This theory has its place, but the second theory is the most true in our opinion. According to it, only an incredibly strong Psyker is needed that can curb the power of the hive mind. Fortunately, such a Psyker has been found. He was Varan Tigurius, a senior bibliarch of the Order of Ultramarines. He was the first and only Psyker in the Imperium who was able to establish some semblance of a connection with the hive mind, survive without going insane. It's not clear how he did it, or if he did it at all, but he was able to predict the future behavior of the Tyranids with surprising accuracy. Rumor has it that this is due to his gift of foresight, but as previously stated, the accuracy of his predictions of Tyranid behavior is very high. As practice shows, such results can only be achieved by reading the mind of the enemy, and if this is true, then Tigurius is indeed the most powerful Psyker in the Imperium. The mental energy that emanates from their minds is called a synapse. With this power, hive tyrants, Tyranid warriors, broodlords, and other hive commanders control the younger Tyranids. They also bear the name synaptic creatures due to this ability. However, there are also specialized Psykers among the Tyranids. They are called zoanthrope. Their task is to project psychic power onto the rest of the Tyranids. In other words, they are a living conduit for the hive mind on the battlefield. But what happens when the Tyranids lose the mind link? After all, as mentioned earlier, genocrades have lived for thousands of years without a synapse. It is difficult to answer this question accurately, but in some cases most Tyranids simply revert to their animal instincts. But the same genocrades, for example, can create a telepathic link with each other within a brood, thus performing their duties without connection to the hive fleet. There are many Imperial theories as to who or what the mind of the Tyrannic hive may be. Some believe that the essence of the hivemin is too distant for human comprehension, hence my efforts to find supreme beings that can control all hive fleets. Such beings do exist, however they are more likely to be only small cells of the entire mind rather than the brain itself. In other words, the loss of such cells is not critical. Others believe that there is no central brain. Tyranids themselves create a powerful psychic network with which they can determine the location of other Tyranids or even entire fleets of hives, thus developing a strategy. Others believe that somewhere in the universe there is a monster of enormous size and incredible psychic abilities, for which the Tyranids are only puppets to achieve their own goals. You can build a huge number of theories and all of them will be equally true, because the truth itself we are unlikely to ever know. The Hive Fleet is truly a vast swarm of Tyranids, consisting of hundreds of millions of living ships with billions of Tyranids aboard. In such huge clusters, they move through space in search of any organic life. Each creature within this swarm is subject to the already known unified intelligence of the Hive. The Imperium divides the Tyranid forces into major and lesser Hive fleets. The major ones include the three largest, the Behemoth, the Kraken, and the Leviathan. The smaller ones are much more numerous. Each of the three major Tyranid hives have gone to war with my empire. Tyranid forces invaded the galaxy from neither side, as some might think. Behemoth and Kraken began devouring worlds from the eastern part of the Ultima Segmentum, while Leviathan invaded as if from below the plane of the galaxy. It is believed that the currently known hive fleets are only precursors to the real invasion of the Tyranids, whose main forces are still on their way towards our galaxy. Due to their vast experience in long flights, the Tyranid ships contain all the necessary facilities to sustain a fleet. They are ready for any threat in their path. Combat ships serve for defense and attack, while other living ships contain birth ponds. In them, the Tyranids create their army and new ships as needed. Substances for food and rebirth are replenished after devouring all organics on oncoming planets, including Tyranids fallen in battle. This method of rebirth gives them a tremendous advantage. Through dead warriors, the hive mind gathers information about the enemy, and thus the Tyranids can adapt to any battle, rebuilding their warriors genetically and physically with amazing speed. The main goal in eating all living things is to collect as much different DNA as possible to breed stronger species of Tyranids, and it suggests that Tyranids may have looked very different in the past. There is no doubt that hordes of these monsters have devoured dozens, if not hundreds, of different galaxies, and as a consequence, they have diversified their species with millions of different DNA. With each race from which they waged war, the Tyranids adapted to change their physical and genetic makeup, and there is no doubt that it was this ability that made them emerge victorious. In all the time that the Tyranids have been devouring the planets of our galaxy, they have managed to absorb many different genes. According to the study, the Genocrades and Broodlords were created from human DNA. The mental abilities of zoanthropes were based on Eldar genes, and the Bio-Warriors were created from Orc DNA. The constant adaptation of these Sinos right during the battle led to huge losses on the part of the defending forces. Moreover, the stronger the planet's defenses, the stronger the hive fleet attacking it became. Hundreds of different strategies crashed on the cruel rocks of all new types of Tyranids. Some strategies, however, have proven to be quite viable and on a permanent basis. One such strategy is the total exterminatus of the planet. The essence of the strategy is to lure as much Tyranid life force as possible to a ground battle, and after evacuating the planet, destroy everything and everyone on it. The effectiveness of this strategy lies in the fact that the Tyranids not only suffer huge losses, but also lose the opportunity to do what they exist for, to eat and process all the organic matter of the planet. And without the eaten material, the hive fleet cannot recover and adapt to the next battle. As a consequence, the Tyranids have no choice but to retreat and seek out more accessible planets to make up for their unexpected losses. To be continued.